I either made a huge mistake or I forged a brand new way of growing potatoes here in Florida. I mean, it was totally by accident, and I'm really not looking forward to digging these out, but today's the day. You're probably wondering how I accidentally grew potatoes in sand. Well, it's kind of funny. I was planting these potatoes and I went down into my soil about 5 inches deep to plant them. And then a couple weeks go by and I don't see any sprouts. And I'm like, man, okay, I'm having one of my failed potato sprout experiences again. It was very frustrating. Well, at the same time, my husband was putting in a French drain in the front of our house because we were having a little bit of like pooling of water in the front. And the best way to manage that is to put in a French drain. So we had dug out a bunch of our native sand. And so we had all this native sand and I'm like, hey, we could pay to have this removed or we could use it. And I'm like, let's fill the beds because I had a few of my beds, probably about 50% of my beds had sunk to the point that they were only about half full at that point. And so I'm like, let's take that sand and put it in and top the beds. My beds were so rich. The soil was so, so much compost, so much organic material that it was actually holding on to water a little bit too much, like causing some root rot. So I knew that eventually I was going to have to add sand into it. And this was just the perfect time to do it. So this bed had probably the lowest amount of soil in it, and I put all of this sand in. It was probably an entire like cubic yard of sand went into this particular bed over top of those buried potatoes that I thought died. Well, surprise, surprise to me, after I had topped this bed with sand, I was walking by it a couple weeks later and suddenly I see potato sprouts. And I was like, oh, great, cool. But I had put about 6 inches of sand on top of the soil that I had, and I had buried these about 5 inches deep into the soil. So I'm like, oh my goodness, when it comes time to harvest, I am going to have to pull these potatoes up from like 12 inches. And I was like, man, this is not going to be a fun experience. But the sand is loose, so maybe it will be easier. I also wasn't exactly sure how well they were going to grow in just complete sand. There was good and rich soil down below where I planted them, so I had some hope, but I also was concerned the sand heats up more, so maybe the potatoes won't grow as big. Also, using native sand means that there is probably some root knot nematodes in the sand, and I know that that is true because I have lost other plants in some of the other beds to root knot nematodes that I had brought in with the sand. I knew it was a possibility that this might happen. And with the amount of sand that I had put into this particular bed with these potatoes, I was almost certain that I was going to have a problem with that. Strangely enough, as I'm pulling up these potatoes, I did not see a single issue with nematodes. It's very strange. Maybe these varieties are really resistant. I can't even understand why this bed didn't have any problems when it had the most sand. Now let's talk about the different varieties that I grew. So I grew 3 varieties. 1 I had grown before and 2 that were new. So it was the Russian banana fingerling, which is these tiny little white potatoes you see me pulling up right here. Those purple ones that you saw before, those were supposed to be huckleberry gold. And I say supposed to be because when I put them in the ground, they were a pinkish potato. They're pink. And then on the inside, they're gold or yellow. They came out purple. I don't know what happened here. I'm wondering if it's like a pH thing or something to do with the sand that colored the outside of the potatoes more dark than what they're supposed to be. I know it can't be a different variety. These are clones. When you grow potatoes, you're growing them as clones. So it's definitely huckleberry gold that I put in there. Has to be huckleberry gold that I pulled out. Now the third potato was a russet Nordic PHR, I believe is what it was called. I had grown that a couple, maybe 2-3 years ago. It didn't do well. Surprise, surprise, it didn't do well again. I'm definitely taking that one off the list. Now, the Huckleberry Gold, I was pleasantly surprised with how well those grew. They grew nice sized potatoes. They grew a good amount. I think I only put 3 or 4 potatoes into the ground to grow, and they grew at least triple that. The banana fingerlings, I just don't know how I feel about them. They produced a lot of fingerling potatoes, but they're so tiny. And I know that fingerling potatoes are supposed to be small, so it's not that I expected them to be super big, but these are very small, smaller than the potatoes that I planted. But there's a lot of them. So if you like baby potatoes, if you like that, tiny potato, you'll love these because they are tiny and they look great. I haven't tried them yet, but I suspect that they're pretty good as well. They're a yellow potato. I'm definitely partial to yellow potatoes. But I don't think the Russian banana is ever going to make it on my list again. I'm going to go back to doing the cow whites, the golden nuggets, and now I add a third one, which is going to be the Huckleberry Gold. I'm very excited to be able to add that one. I actually got the idea to grow the Huckleberry Gold from Simple Living Alaska. It's another YouTube channel. I watch it. I think it's so interesting. But they talk about some of the different varieties of stuff that they grow. And on occasion, I have tried that down here. I know, totally odd, totally separate. We are as opposite as you can get when it comes to climate. But, I always like to try different things, and I was very surprised that Huckleberry Gold did good for them. And it seems to be doing good for me as well. So I will definitely be growing those again. If you need some help with your Florida garden, make sure to check out my Homegrown Florida Gardening Guide ebook. You can find it at my website, homegrownfloridagarden.com. And it has 30 different chapters with different vegetables in each one of them, over 130 pages telling you exactly how to grow these traditional veggies in your home garden. Everything from pest management, disease management, container gardening, when to plant, how many to plant, and my favorite varieties. It is a wealth of information, guys. Make sure to pick up your copy today. So here's our full harvest out of that whole bed. That's that Nordic russet. These are the little banana fingerlings, and then I'll show you the Huckleberry Gold in just a second. But the fingerlings, now that I'm looking at them again, I'm like, maybe some of them are a decent size, but you see how small they are. When I think of fingerlings, I think of them as a little bit bigger than this. This is one of those Huckleberry Golds. They were all consistently this size. I was very, very pleased with that. And there were so many of them. About half that bowl that you see there are those Huckleberry Golds that are supposed to be pink, but clearly they look purple to me. The Nordic that's in my hand there with the little fingerlings, that one, I think I got 3. I think I planted 5 and I only got 3 potatoes. This was very similar. Last time, for every potato that I planted, I only got 1 or 2. Definitely not growing those. I think it's difficult to grow a russet in Florida anyway. They take a long time. This particular Nordic russet was meant to grow faster, and I think that just negatively impacts it. I'm not sure. Now these, some of these are the actual seed potatoes that I planted, and some of them have this weird mold on them. These potatoes that I found, a lot of the potatoes were growing up into the sand. So if you think about the way that they're planted, they were planted down into the good soil and then they grew up into the sand. Well, the stuff that was in the sand looked great, but the stuff that was in the enriched soil, some of it had like white mold on it. And not like white mold, like the black mold that you don't want to keep in your house, but white mold is a type of fungal disease that happens to carrots and potatoes. So I got rid of those. I'm going to have to rotate this bed for a while and not put any root vegetables in it because of this disease. No carrots, no potatoes, no root vegetables like beets or I think onions would probably be fine and sweet potatoes would be fine based on the different families. But I'm probably just going to cover crop this particular bed. Now what you see me doing right here is curing. So we need to cure these potatoes. I never have a problem curing in my Florida home. I have a problem with storing long term. But curing, I just lay them on a towel in my spare bedroom or anywhere that's out of the way. Where you can keep the room dark. And I put a cotton towel on the bottom, and then I take a dark colored towel and I lay it on top, and I set a reminder on my phone for 10 days. After 10 days, should be fine. 10 to 14 days is all you need. And now for the giveaway, the Florida Finley Multiplier Perennial Green Onion. These are my absolute favorite green onions, not just for eating, but also I use these as basically a companion plant across my entire garden. I got one of these from a viewer a couple of years ago, and now it has turned into hundreds of plants. They are so prolific. They can be a little bit hard to find, so today is the day, man. I am going to be giving these away. So for the big giveaway, I'm going to be giving 5 of these randomly to folks who have signed up to the website below. So head down to the description of this video and there'll be a link where you will sign up. That sign up includes signing up for my regular newsletter. I only send out once a month. I won't spam you, I promise. But I send out a newsletter saying what's going on in the garden and some of my favorite blog posts that week. And by signing up for that email, you will sign up for this. If you're already on the email list, you still do have to go to this website to sign up for the giveaway. Now, the giveaway is only for United States residents. You must be over the age of 18. 1 submission per entry. You have until June 30th to sign up for the giveaway. I will be picking 5 people's names at random who signed up 1 week later. So that's on July 7th. I will send you an email based on the email that you sent to me to sign up, and then you have 1 week to get back to me in order to claim your prize. When you get these guys will be in their dormant stage. That's why I'm giving you a little bit of extra time so that these guys can get cured. You're going to hang on to them until around September is when they come out of dormancy, and then you plant them in your garden, and then they just grow through the whole season, and then we pull them out every summer, set them in a pantry to go dormant, and then pull them back out every fall. So remember, to sign up, head down to the link down in the description below, put in your name and your email address. By the way, I will never ask you for any funds. So if you get any emails from people or messages from people pretending to be me, asking you for money, that is not me. I will pay for the shipping myself. All that I will ask you for is the address that you want me to ship these to. So make sure to head down and sign up below. It may sound confusing calling these perennial onions, but seeing me pull them out. So let me take a second to explain what's happening here. They are perennial in that they will grow year over year over year. So think of them like a regular onion. A regular onion is biennial. So it basically, the first year you start it from seed, it will grow a bulb. And then you usually pull that out and you cure it and hang it in your pantry. Well, I don't know if you know this, but what you can do at that point is when it starts to sprout in your pantry, you can take it to the garden and bury it, and it will keep growing. It goes dormant. And then once it starts growing again after it's sprouted, it will then create seed or flower heads that will create seed. After that, then the plant dies. Well, these perennial onions, these Florida Finley onions, what they do is every single year they are producing a flower head. But it's not the flower head that a bulbing onion gets. It's actually much thinner. It doesn't disrupt the quality of the green onions like a regular bulbing onion would do. And every year it produces that, and every year that it goes dormant, it comes out of dormancy, and it never goes through that last phase of life like a regular bulbing onion does after it's flowered. These guys will just keep living. Now, the way that they work, and why I love them so much, is you can take, they're growing in a bundle. But what I started with was 1 green onion. So if you think about a green onion, it's got the shoot, the green part, the top part, and then the bottom is, you know, the white part with the root. Well, when I got this, it was just that, just 1. and I planted them in the ground. And then what happens is they multiply, like a cell divides, these things multiply and they start creating and splitting off more. I've seen them get as many as 20 splits. So if you start with one green onion, it will then split into 20, and they all attach at the bottom. They kind of do like a circular vase type shape of all these green onions, and then the base, all the roots kind of get tangled up together, and you just pull them out of the ground, you separate, take what you want, and then replant. Now when I was using them this year, I did that a lot. I pulled a lot of them out of the ground and took what I wanted and replanted them, and I noticed that the ones that I pulled out of the ground and separated and replanted seemed to do better. The more you pull them out, separate them, and then replant them, the bigger the white part or the root part of the green onion gets. But there were several of them that I didn't touch all season long. And that's why you're going to see here that I'm going through them, because I want to pick the very best ones for this giveaway and also to save for myself for next season. And because I didn't pull a bunch of these, they got so many green onion sprouts or multipliers that the root part became quite small, very, very skinny little green onions, and I just don't know how well they're going to do through dormancy. They're absolutely fine to eat. You can totally eat them, the green parts or the white, but they were very, very skinny, and from my experience last season, I felt like they came out of dormancy with so much vigor when they had a larger root system. So that's why I'm picking and I'm going through these to find the ones that had the biggest root systems for the giveaway and for my personal garden. Now I know some of you are going to be clutching your imaginary pearls right now as you see what I'm doing here, separating them and just cutting the greens and throwing them into the bed instead of using them. But please, please know, I have probably 1,000 of these plants. It has become wild how one plant has turned into so many. I have been harvesting from this patch all year long. It's been a year. I've been harvesting from this patch, and I have dehydrated green onions. I have frozen green onions. I have freeze-dried green onions. I have freeze-dried green onion powders. I have fresh that we ate them. I still have fresh ones in the fridge that are lasting quite a while. Like I am up to my eyeballs in green onions. I can't do anything more with them. So at this point, I'm like, okay, what do I do with the rest of these? Well, I need to clip the tops off so that I can let, these go into dormancy. I'm going to use it as biomass organic mulch. This is all about, how the garden works, right? You take from it the food that you want. You need to give back some food. And I just thought that this would make the best organic mulch. I have so much of it. The pests cannot stand it. This has been an excellent companion plant that I grow across my entire garden. And so why not use the tops of these green onions that I'm going to be saving to cure as a mulch, especially in the beds where I'm growing things that are heavy pest activity. So something like you could put these underneath your tomatoes, either growing or like I'm doing here, chopping off the top. So say for example, you win these or you buy them and you want to start growing these and they start getting out of control, but you want to, keep separating them so that you get a nice big harvest and a nice big bulb that you can save as you go into this summer season of curing. You want to pull them out of the ground, separate them. You can take the ones that you're not eating because there is so many, and you could just start chopping them up as organic mulch to put under your plants that struggle with pests. And summer is just the most perfect time to have all of this biomass, onion biomass, because we have so many pests in our garden that I thought this would be an excellent way to use it. It's just going back in to feed the garden. So don't think that I am just throwing them away. I am using it as biomass. I am using it as organic mulch and as a pest control method. So after we've cut all the greens off and I've picked the ones that I want to store long term until fall, I'm going to lay them out on a table in a single line here and let them dry out. Now, if you are expecting rain anytime soon, I wouldn't necessarily dry them outside. We have a pretty high humidity environment here. So drying them outside takes quite a bit of time, and if there is rain in the forecast or a significant number of days of rain in the forecast, this can inhibit its ability to dry properly. But right now, we're in our drought season. We had some rain, but that's past now, and we're back to being rain-free for a while. The humidity's still kind of high, but it's enough to let these guys dry out. It doesn't have to be perfect. And once they start drying out, I have a couple on the table I'm going to show you here in a second. These are ones that I picked off a few days ago in preparation for this, probably about a week ago. And I want to show you the difference. So the one on the left is, we just harvested that one today. And you can see there's a lot of green in the root system and everything. And then this one right here, I've cut off the root system. It's mostly white. There's a tiny bit of green at the tips there. These are ready to go inside the house. So I'm going to put them in a paper bag and I'm going to stick them in my pantry and keep them nice and dark. And then that should hold them over until fall, and you'll know they're ready because they'll actually start to sprout just like a regular bulbing onion does. Now, before we end for the day, I definitely want to go back through and dig out my bed because I almost always find potatoes after I do a second dig. I've taken some time to cool off because it was so hot digging these out, but I found a lot more than I expected this round. I didn't usually find but just a couple normally when I do this, but this time I found a lot, and I suspect it's because of how deep these potatoes were buried initially that it took me a while to get digging down in there with that pitchfork. And then I'm laying out the onion scraps or the onion tops as that mulch in the potato bed, as well as this bed right here that we are going to use for peanuts later on in the season. I tend to get a lot of aphids with peanuts, and I'm hoping that using the green onions here is going to help push some of those away. And using the traditional shirt method, instead of going in to get a basket, I am picking up all of those potatoes that I found while I was using the pitchfork. And you can see there's a lot more of the huckleberry gold and a lot more of the banana fingerling. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and make sure to head down and sign up for the giveaway.